All right. I have Willie Chino, aka Comrade Will, on the call, and I want to ask him a number of questions related to his role within the new African Black Panther Party. Will was the national spokesperson for the Brown Panther Organizing Committee, and in fact had been recruited by Shaka into the party during early 2020. And he remained on the Central Committee of the New African Black Panther Party as the national spokesperson for the Brown Panther Organizing Committee until latter 2020 when he resigned in protest of situations that had arisen with relation to Shaka Zulu and Tom Watts. Will and I were engaged in work together during the time that he was a member of the New African Black Panther Party. And he had extensive opportunity to observe me and my work on the Central Committee in relation to other members of the party, et cetera. And I want to ask him a number of questions in relation to the recent post that Shaka made on June 1st, 2021, respecting me. So, Will, if you would, I want to ask you, in your experiences on the New African Black Panther Party Central Committee and in your interactions with me, would you agree with the statements that Shaka made that I am a sociopath, narcissistic, I have a personality disorder, and that I was disruptive to the party?
I would not agree with anything that Shaka said on that video, and generally anything he says on social media in general, strictly because of the experiences I had with him in this organizational space. I do want to say it was an honor and a privilege to organize with you during that time that I was in. And I say that because, it was Shaka Zulu and Tom Watts who was the ones that I saw as opportunist and commandist, unreliable, and lacked leadership skills in an organization that very much needed leadership. And that burden fell on to you, and that it was actually you who acted in a very principled way of providing leadership, trying to clean up the mess that Shaka and Tom were just leaving everywhere, and everyone they spoke to. So for Shaka to come out with this video to call you narcissistic and whatever else, is just, they've got nothing else. They've got nothing on you. And in fact, most of the accusations that Shaka made in that video against you were actually behaviors and characteristics of Shaka himself and Tom Watts. So it's just disgusting to see him put out a video like this, like, I don't know, 6 months after us, y'all split, and for them to go this low, I mean, even worse, people who believe him, right? Just because Shaka said it, with no evidence. He could say that he has all the documents in the world, which he says. I don't know, he has to repeat himself in order to get people to believe him, that he has all these documents to prove that you're narcissistic and you're a sociopath or whatever. But it's just not true. And there's just so many people who could validate that Shaka is actually the one, and Tom is actually the one who is narcissistic and opportunist and commandist and individualistic and so many other things that are just very harmful for an organization, for any organization. And it
you
really
have
made
1 minute remaining.
And it really made the organization toxic, where people left, especially women. And yeah, we could talk about all that, but yeah, it's just disgusting to see that.
Okay, I just want to make clear before we go any further. Before we got on this call, have I given you any indication of what I was going to ask you or answers that you should give to anything that I should ask you? You're being allowed, just pretty much to answer whatever I ask you in your own words and just based on your own free thoughts and your own experience and ideas, right?
No, you did not tell me anything about the questions that you're going to ask me. So I'm just kind of responding as you ask them right now.
Okay. Within the New African Black Panther Party and on the Central Committee, there were a number of struggles being engaged. Was I a disruptive element on the Central Committee or within the party? What was your experience with me with respect to struggling on the Central Committee against anything that was going on within the party?
Yeah, that's really funny that Shaka actually said that. If anyone was disruptive, it definitely was him. There were so many occasions where he would miss calls and not attend calls, give these ridiculous reasons for missing calls. And I'll get back to that in a moment. So I
Hold on,
think
you talk about attending the Central Committee meetings on the calls, right?
Yeah. Leadership meetings, right? So
Okay.
Shaka's not attending these. He's a chairman. He's not attending these. He's missing these. So what happened is a lot of criticisms and concerns, complaints, all that was given to various members, in leadership positions. And, Tom doesn't talk to anybody. Shaka is unreliable and nobody can reach him. And so a lot of these complaints and criticisms end up where you are the one to hear these things. And then you begin to investigate a lot of these concerns and criticisms, and you bring them where else? To the leadership meeting calls, right? And when you start to ask these questions, again, Shaka's like, well, you know what? I can't, there would be times where meetings were set to talk specifically about certain criticisms and organizational issues, internal stuff. And when that meeting was set, Shaka was for sure to not attend that meeting, and just for things that should have took an hour, took weeks to even confront Shaka about. And then when Shaka was confronted about these criticisms, complete denial, dismissive of the people and the members who actually brought these criticisms forth. And it was really disruptive, and it wasted hours and hours of all of our time. It wasted money because calls with you cost money. And then, members and other comrades were kind of left in the dust, not understanding what's going on with leadership. And it really fell onto two main people, and that's Shaka and Tom, doing all the things that Shaka accused you of doing in that video. So it's really ironic and just contradictory and just blatant lies that Shaka says in these videos.
Okay. Shaka stated in that video, and I want to ask you, he said that he was brought on before the Central Committee for abuse of women, and we exonerated him. And he specifically repeated several times, me and Shupavu Wakarini were involved in exonerating him on allegations of abuse of women. Did this ever happen? And was Shupavu ever a member of the Central Committee, much less the party itself?
No, Shu wasn't a part of that Central Committee. And exonerating Shaka, I mean, it was really messy and confusing, because at first, there's like one criticism of male chauvinistic behaviors of Shaka, and people are like, how could that be, right? And it was really difficult, again, trying to get people on a call, especially like Shaka, who likes to avoid these calls and not respond through any type of communication line, email, text, phone call, any of that. And so, but then, criticisms of male chauvinism and sexually inappropriate behavior from the chairman, Shaka, towards various women across the country and even locally in his area. It came up again and came up again and came up again, and Shaka denied it. denied it, even though we had, the evidence to back it up, these criticisms of male chauvinistic and sexually inappropriate behavior, especially from a leadership, let alone any male. And I know that you kept asking questions about this. There was one phone call in the very beginning that was very unorganized. And I think the benefit of the doubt went towards Shaka, but these criticisms kept coming up and concerns kept being brought up. And then just, after, and it was comrades like you and a lot of the comrades from the Brown Panther organizing committee were really pushing this. It was like, we can't let this slide. These criticisms they keep coming up. So like to say that Shaka was exonerated, as if as if you can just exonerate any male of that at one time and not understand that it could happen in the future after that, is kind of ridiculous to me. But Shaka is just trying to clear his name, that he's the perfect revolutionary that does everything with his own hands. That's the type of talk that he's been giving for years now. So anybody who understands that one man can't start a revolution or hold an entire organization together knows that that's ridiculous.
Okay, he made claims in that video that since he got out on parole in January 2019, he was responsible for developing base areas for the party in New York, New Jersey, Philly, Ohio, California, Plainsfield, and elsewhere. Is this at all true? And if not, what is the actual truth about this?
Yeah, that really stuck out to me, particularly because a lot of these UPM collectives that Shaka claimed that Shaka claimed that he did everything. There's no organization. It's just him. It's just such bullshit. It's just a lie. And it really dismisses the organizational efforts and work from the Brown Panther Organizing Committee, because it was really much of the work was done by the Brown Panther Organizing Committee setting up these collectives. When you have these collectives that are interested in joining the UPM, United Panther Movement, who are they reaching out to? Like I said, Shaka is unreliable. Tom is unreliable. You're in prison. People can't just call you up. Who do they call if they wanted to get involved with the UPM? Well, that responsibility fell on the Brown Panther Organizing Committee. And it was the Brown Panther Organizing Committee that wrote the UPM manual, that created communicational lines and relationships with these collectives across the country. We provided organizational structure for political education, helped set up curriculum for that political education, so on and so forth, right? Shaka was not a part of that at all. And it was really, it's really alarming to see how much he got away with for so long, claiming and always being the face of the new African Black Panther Party and the UPM as well, with doing so little work, so little organizing. And yeah, so him starting all these chapters single-handedly, first of all, it's nonsense. There's not even one Brown Panther comrade that did it single-handedly. It was a team effort. It was an organizational effort. It took many comrades to do. So yeah, Shaka is just lying blatantly and taking all the responsibility on his two hands, which is just ridiculous on its surface.
Okay, so with respect to providing political education or organizational leadership, Shaka generally was not around at all to provide any of that. Can you describe what role, if any, I played in providing political education, recruiting comrades into the party on the outside, particularly women? Do you have any memory of these things?
Yeah. again, you know, comrades, especially in Shaka's local area, had complaints and criticisms of not having proper political education. And on top of that, you know, Shaka being the chairman, you know, one of the top leadership positions in the organization in his own local area, didn't provide any curriculum, any political education, barely attended the sessions. You know, there was reports of him showing up late to a political education session and staying there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, mostly on the phone, and then leaving new comrades, new recruits, to kind of just learn on their own. And you know, I remember you hearing about this and just immediately being like, all right, I need to, you know, you were like, you need to talk to these comrades immediately. And you got involved and you provided political education sessions. You helped organize the calls. You reached out to people, you know, asked what their concerns are, asked what their criticisms are, and then tried to, you know, resolve those contradictions, those problems, those issues. Which I think says a lot about your character, and it says a hell of a lot about Shaka's character, because Shaka's not the one on the inside. He's the one running around on social media, right? Again, he's starting these, he claimed that he started all these UPM collectives across the country, yet in his own backyard, there are comrades saying that he's not even showing up to political education sessions, let alone providing leadership to that local area, to that local collective.
Okay. Let's talk about his claims. And he claimed there was no reason for the split to have taken place with him and Tom, except there were structural issues, or basically we were saying we disagreed with the way that the UPM was structured as a mass organization. The actual published statements for the basis of the split was his repeated theft of money that had been donated or raised for party work and used for his own personal benefit, repeated complaints of his abuse of women, which he avoided any accountability for, he avoided criticisms for, he avoided being heard about, he completely evaded ever even acknowledging that it was going on. His commandist behavior, his dictating to people who were trying to get involved with the UPM in the area that he was in. He wouldn't basically involve himself in any political work. He would involve himself in Serve the People programs. He would basically run around with a bullhorn yelling to people, you know, passing by to come and get food, but he never participated in packing the food. He never participated in packing the bags, setting up the display stands, the tables, distributing the food. He never did any work, but he always was first on social media to accept recognition or to claim responsibility for the work that everybody else is doing. Now, do you recall his involvement with complaints of stealing money concerning the prison bus program? There was also revelations of stolen money after you left and after the split. Do you recall these things?
Well, there was a lot of financial issues surrounding Shaka. Some of it I was involved with, some of it I wasn't involved with. You know, one of the things, listen, in an organization, especially around financial issues, it is incredibly important that all members involved with the responsibilities of finances agree and work together. There is no lone soldier person that just takes care of the money themselves, because how do you have accountability? How do you have accountability with the finances if it's only one person, right? So there was instances where Shaka would raise money or start certain accounts to raise money, where he just made a unilateral decision to do that without organizational agreement, without accountability from other leadership. He just went on doing whatever he thought should be done. And so I know that's happened before. As far as the prison bus situation, when I got involved, that was kind of already in the workings. People had a lot of questions and concerns when I got in about, what, apparently thousands of money has been raised to start a prison bus and nobody knew what was going on. And then, the whole thing with Ghazi Kozo, who leaked or exposed this stuff, and it became a really big thing. And then when I left, there was also the idea of several $1,000s being donated to the organization, but in particular, it was given to Shaka Zulu, and then Shaka never reported it. So I guess nobody knows what happened to that thousands and thousands of dollars. So anyways, what I'm saying, it's a recurring pattern of Shaka being irresponsible with the finances that are raised in the name of an organization that represents many other people besides Shaka Zulu.
Okay, let me see. I would like to add specifically to the prison bus program thing, because that actually happened before you were recruited into the party, and you kind of observed the end product of it. Shaka had gone on social media and set up a GoFundMe for a prison bus program that was supposed to generate money to buy buses or, vehicles that would be used to transport people to prison, in New Jersey. The amount that was sought to be raised was $5,000, and more than $5,000 was raised. Ultimately, over half of that money disappeared, and Shaka used some of the money for other party work, but he also used a substantial amount of that money for his own personal benefit, buying food and other amenities for himself. This came out because at the time that he was doing this, he was communicating with Shapavu Wakarima, who was helping him, doing some organizational work during the time she was in a leadership position in the African People's Socialist Party. And she was aware of what he was doing, and she repeatedly counseled him against taking money that was raised for one thing and using it for another, and spending on himself and, for amenities for himself. And he still did it regardless. He was confronted by me with doing the same thing when it came to my attention that he was doing it, and he never denied doing it. So ultimately, over half of that money disappeared. And at the time, Shapavu was a friend of Ghazi Kozo because they were previously both members of the African People's Socialist Party. And she wrote a critique of Shaka, and she shared it with Ghazi just to get his, his insight on her writing, and, just to get some ideas from him, on the quality of her analysis and critique. Unbeknown to her, he secretly recorded the document. He made a copy of it. So ultimately, I came out with a criticism against Ghazi when he made some, genuinely anti-Semitic remarks on social media, and he ended up falling out with me and her over this.
You have 1 minute remaining.
In revenge for my critique of him, he leaked that document that Shapavu had written criticizing Shaka for stealing money. And this is how the information became public, that Shaka had been stealing money and using it for himself that had been raised for party work. I was tasked to basically investigate and address the situation in a nominal way. Okay, when the matter was brought up before the Central Committee, hold on, let me call back. Ready?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for using GTL.
As I was saying, when the matter came before the Central Committee, I proposed, as a result of Shaka basically admitting what he had done, it couldn't have been denied, that we publicize what happened, that Shaka had misused funds that had been raised for the prison bus program, that it was an error on his part, that he was critical, self-critical of his behavior, that we had addressed it, and that the remaining money would be used to buy the vehicle for the prison bus program. Ultimately, initially Shaka, he agreed with the logic of the position I took. The next day, he came back on a phone conversation, irate, stating that I was trying to undermine his position on the leadership of the party. I was trying to, make him look bad publicly, this sort of thing. So Tom ended up coming to his aid and arguing that instead of revealing what Shaka had actually done, what we should do was to evade whether money had been misused or not, and simply have Shaka buy a prison bus and pose in a photograph with this, this vehicle to make it appear as though the money had actually been spent on the prison bus, no money had been misused and misappropriated, and that would be that. And this ultimately was how the situation was resolved. I was tasked to write an article, saying, Shaka had not done what was alleged, basically just covering up for Shaka. And I was outvoted on this issue by Tom and Shaka. And it was required that this would just be deception by omission. And we would have Shaka rush to find a vehicle to take a picture with, and it would look like, there was no misappropriation of funds, there was no theft of funds that were raised, for the party work, and that it was actually used for the purpose that it was raised for. And this is how the whole scandal was covered up, when Shaka had, misappropriated and stolen money that had been raised for this prison bus program. Then after the split, a second incident arose where several $1,000s came up missing again. This money had been donated by a church in New Jersey to the party for an educational program that did not exist, and the money had been given to Shaka. It was like $4,000. And then another substantial sum of money was donated by George Katifika. Shaka accepted this money under the false pretext that it was going to be used for an educational program, and the money simply disappeared. It was never accounted for. At the time this money was donated to Shaka, I had been elected by the Central Committee to act as the acting Minister of Finance, and another comrade named Shalia was assisting me. Neither I nor Shalia was ever informed that this money was given to Shaka, and it just disappeared, and it remains unknown whatever happened with this $5,000. And these were just two of a number of instances where money was stolen or misused by Shaka. There were also other instances where, complaints were being made of Shaka's commandant's behavior toward people. Also, is that not true?
Yeah, absolutely. It happened more than once.
Okay, but yet he claimed in his statement that there were no reasons given for the separation of the other comrades with him and Tom, that the only issues were structural issues. And if we look at the position that revolutionary leaders like, say, for example, Comrade Amilcar Cabral took with respect to comrades who steal, who are dishonest, he stated explicitly that these people should not be the members of any revolutionary party. And in fact, I will quote him in one of his statements in the book Unity and Struggle, Speeches and Writings of Amilcar Cabral. At page 87, the comrade stated, quote, "I will state the question of our task clearly to you. There should only be honest and serious persons in the party. Anyone who is dishonest should leave, as should all those who take advantage of the party to serve their personal interests. Today they may deceive us, but tomorrow they will leave for sure. Anyone who lies should leave, as should anyone who is only chasing his own ideas. To have terraline trousers and pretty shirts, to abuse our girls, or anyone who goes about misusing the people of our land." End quote. So this is a revolutionary leader who acknowledges that people who are dishonest, who abuse women, who take advantage of a political organization for their own personal gain, who promote their own ideas and interests in the name of a political organization, should not be part of a political organization. And these are the specific reasons that we separated from Shaka: the dishonesty, as well as Tom Watts, the theft of money, the abuse of comrades, the abuse of women, etc. So his claims that the only reason that we separated from him and Tom were structural issues is an out lie. And each of the articles that I have written concerning the split state specifically that these were the reasons that we split with him, and they have not disputed those facts. So let me add also, with respect to people who were recruited into the party, especially in the Newark, New Jersey area, Shaka never attempted and never did recruit anybody or educate anybody to be recruited into the party because he did not want any party peers who could answer to the party or report him to the party organizing with him in New Jersey. And the only reason that anybody in New Jersey, women in particular, were ever recruited into the party was because I went and recruited, gave political education and recruited them, specifically Comrade Shalia, Comrade Ascari, and Comrade Steph, who is now known as Comrade Sojourner. Do you recall this?
Yeah, I mean, it's anybody who considers himself a revolutionary communist understands that it is imperative that we recruit cadre into the party. And when you have a mass organization like the UPM, and specifically in Newark, you have Shaka, who is chairman. Everyone else that he organizes with is in the mass organization. And after a year, after 2 years, no one being recruited in the party, then some questions start to rise where, what is going on here? Let alone a lot of the members who are, of the mass organization don't even understand communist principles, history, or a lot of the basics of political education. Then the bells start going out and saying, what's going on here? A lot of questions start coming. So yeah, basically, Shaka just didn't recruit anybody in the party. That apparently he didn't know how to do that, or it wasn't a concern of his. All the while, again, he's on social media this whole time talking about what a revolution he's single-handedly building. Yet, the party isn't growing in his area. And, Shaka's not going to lead a revolution by himself, let alone be involved with a real one. So yeah, just I think also it's important for people who are listening to this and may not know everything. I think it's simple enough just to go check out Shaka's social media pages. I know, especially on his Facebook and Instagram. If you look at the times and the years that images are posted, every year he is with a new crew. He's with a new UPM collective in Newark. He is with everyone he's with is just new year in and year out. Why? Where are the people that we're supposed to be building long-lasting relationships with, getting to become members of UPM or cadre in the party, to continue this effort, protracted struggle, building these relationships? What happens to these people after a year of being around Shaka? They're nowhere to be found. They leave. Shaka cannot stick with anyone for longer than a year in organizing and being in organizational spaces, really, except Tom Watts. But that's a question, and it's all public. Go check it out. And then, yeah, that's a question that people should be asking. Shaka, what are you doing with the people that are nearest to you in these organizational spaces? Why are they not staying? Where are they going? What is happening? Because according to your social media rant in this video that we're responding to, Shaka has done everything to build the revolution, has done everything correctly, and it's just everything is his responsibility. But every year there's someone new, and who knows who the leadership is of the NABVP right now. But apparently he makes a big talk that there's a huge leadership there. People need to question. They need to question what is actually going on.
And of course, speaking to the relationship between him and Tom, it's a symbiotic one. I call them Taka, Tom and Shaka. Tom is the brain, Shaka is the mouthpiece. Tom is as Eldridge Cleaver once called it, the omnipotent white administrator, and Shaka is the field hand. that carries out his work for him as a front man. Essentially, Shaka needs Tom for political voice and analysis, and Tom needs Shaka as his black front man to portray the New African Black Panther Party as a black organization when in fact there is a white guy behind the scenes pulling the strings. And that's been the case in effect with Shaka in the leadership. Tom has been the one issuing unilateral position papers telling Shaka what to do since he got on the street. And when I opposed that and I struggled against that, then I became persona non grata with Shaka and Tom.
Yeah, there's definitely a team between those two. I think it's really, because I remember Shaka coming into some meetings with one idea, and then Tom correcting that idea or coming up with a new idea, and then Shaka just following suit. Okay, well, Tom said it, let's do it, type idea. But it's also more than that, where they will. I think it's like parasites recognize parasites, right? Opportunists recognize opportunists. They really support each other. Some of the most opportunistic, commandist, parasitic types of behavior. And I guess it benefits those two only. But it's sick. It's disgusting. They have no right, no space, any revolutionary space, especially among poor and oppressed and exploited people, because they're just going to prey on them like parasites. And it's those people who get hurt in the end. And that's what I saw firsthand. It's like these people were looking to find an organizational home, to find political guidance, to find purpose in their community, and then just getting destroyed by people with the behavior of Shaka and Tom, and just creating such a toxic environment where people think that this is what the revolutionary space is supposed to be like. It's not. People that, honestly, people need to stay away from them. They can't be trusted. I don't trust them. I've worked with them for a while, and just look at their track record. Just look at their track record.
All right. Okay, with that, comrade, I would like to conclude your segment of this discussion.